Greetings and salutations. I am your humble Adobe instructor, AJ Wood, and today we're talking Illustrator CS5. We're going to take a quick look at how you can use Live Trace to help you make better gradient meshes. So let's go ahead and take a look. You can see on the screen in front of you, I have an image, stock image of a pear, and over to the right, I have a quick pen tool sketch of that fruit. What I'm going to do is select the pear bitmap and then choose Live Trace from the control panel. Now the initial trace is the default preset. I'm going to change this to color 6, and this gives me an indication of how the colors fall inside of this pear bitmap. Now if I want to see more detail, or if I want to get a better idea or a different idea of how I can place the colors, I can choose higher color values. I'm just going to use color 16. And if I choose color 16, now I get a better idea of how I can place my gradient mesh and my color values. So you can see there's kind of a dark green, almost a black towards the outside. Then we slowly get a lighter green as we go towards the center. So I'm going to use this as a reference when I create my gradient mesh on my fruit. I'll start by selecting my pear outline. Notice I've already put a green color in it. And I'll go to the Object menu, and I'll choose Create Gradient Mesh. This is going to give me a default mesh. Notice I can specify the number of rows and I can specify the number of columns. So I think a 5 by 5 mesh is a good starting point. I could go ahead and change the appearance. So notice I can do a color blend right away. So here's a highlight from the center. Here would be a highlight on the edges, or simply flat. Because I'm using the Live Trace object on the left as my reference, I'm going to start with a flat appearance. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And now I'm ready to start putting colors against this mesh. Now when I'm working with a gradient mesh, I like to start general to specific. So I'm going to go ahead and use this 5 by 5 mesh, and then as I need to fine tune it, I'll add more mesh points. So I'm going to start by grabbing the lasso tool. You can use the direct selection tool, but I found when I want to grab multiple mesh points, the lasso tool is a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and what I'll do is I will highlight or surround the mesh points I want to color. So notice here I'm going through the fruit because I want the edge mesh points. So I'll just come out here, close that off. These are the edge mesh points. So you can see if you look real close, the dark blue are the edge mesh points that I've selected. Now I'll change to my eyedropper, so that's simply I for eyedropper. And I will click on my bitmap reference. Now I've got that outer edge shadow. Right? So then I can go and start looking at other points, and we can see we've got kind of a darker color here. That's actually blending really well, so I can probably skip that and go to my secondary color right here in the middle, this kind of autumn green. So I'm going to use the lasso tool once again. So that's Q, because I probably would quit Illustrator before I remember that shortcut. So it's Q for the lasso tool, and I'll go ahead and I'll grab my next set of mesh points. So I'm going to do that here. And I think I want to go this way with it, just like that. Okay, there's my second set of mesh points. Those are now dark blue. I'll change the eyedropper, I for eyedropper, and then I'm just going to click right over here, and then there's my color. And you can see now I've got this color blend kind of coming in. Right, so I've got that color blend going in on that side. If I take a look at the left side of the fruit, we've got kind of this gray to white highlight, right? This kind of gray to white. So I'll use my lasso tool once again, that's Q, and I'll start surrounding those outside edge points on the left side. And then I'll change the eyedropper, that's I for eyedropper. Okay, and then I'll select my color. Okay, so now I've got kind of that outside rim is coming out. Now I do want to start thinking about the highlight. So you can see there is this kind of white highlight up at the top of the pear, another little shiny spot there down towards the middle of the pear, and the mesh that I have doesn't line up exactly the same. So you might want to start adding more mesh points. To add mesh points, you need the mesh tool, the gradient mesh tool, right? And that keyboard shortcut is U, because U is totally unrelated to the mesh tool apparently. So if I grab that, all I need to do is, you'll notice if I zoom for just a second, there's a little plus symbol. The plus symbol means I would add mesh points. So I'm just going to kind of pick a spot. I think I want to put the highlight right about here. And notice that goes ahead and it adds a little mesh point. Notice it picked the gray color. That's fine. I can change it later. I also have now a mesh point down here. I think that placement is okay. So I'm going to just use those two mesh points to set up the white highlight. So here I'm going to use the direct select tool. Okay, I'm going to click on this mesh point right here. Notice it's active. I'll go ahead and I'll select the white color. So there's my little highlight going out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use the direct selection tool again. Select this mesh point, and I'll use the eyedropper, and I'll pick that same white highlight. Now you can see my highlight is kind of tall. It goes up into the top of the fruit. The way that I'm going to control that is by adding more mesh points. Right? So if I want to control this vertical section of that highlight, I'm going to control that by adding more mesh points. So here's where I start getting more specific. I'll go ahead and change back to the mesh tool. That's U for the mesh tool, and then I'll start adding more points. So I'm going to start here at the top. I want to add a point right here because I don't want that highlight to go very far. Okay, so there's a point. If I want to control it on the bottom side here, I could add another point. But this mesh point right here, I need the green again. Right? So I want the green in that spot. So I'll change the eyedropper, and notice I can click right in the actual fruit because I've already got green. And see how that controls that? Now my highlight spot is a lot smaller because I've got the green right there. Okay, I can do the same thing here. I could add more mesh points. I'll add a mesh point right here, and I'll add another mesh point about here. Okay, and now see, because that's using the green, that's kind of controlling how big that highlight is. Okay, I could actually add more points to it. I think I want to start shaping this lighter green area here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the direct selection arrow. That's A for the direct select tool. And I'll start selecting my other points I want for that brighter spot. So I'm just going to click on them. I hold the shift key to select multiple points. I'm going to do those points here. Okay, we'll go this way, and I'll select that point, and I'll go ahead and then pick the color. Once again, I'm going to use the eyedropper, pick the color right out of the other bitmap. And you can see now there's that lighter color starting to come in. If I need to add more points, once again, it is the direct select tool. I want to add more points to this. Okay, there we go. And you can see now I'm just kind of blending the colors in. If I want to shape more colors, I just keep working away at my gradient mesh. So I grab my restore points, okay, my little anchor points here, my mesh points, and then I just start shaping that color. So near I have the outside edge, I want to do a little bit of the darker green. Go ahead and grab the eyedropper. Okay, and I think that's a little bit too much. See how that pushed in quite a bit? So I'll try a different color. I think that shapes it a little better, but now I know I want to add more mesh points to the outside, right, to really kind of give that some shape. So again, I change to the mesh tool, that's U, and I'll start adding more mesh points. So I think I want to go here. Okay, I want to go right over here. Okay, now I'm adding more mesh points to kind of shape that. Now I can just select them. So I'll come and start using my shift key to shift and click those mesh points because I really wanted to push that color on that outer edge. So that's what I wanted to do, push that color on that outer edge this way. Okay, now I'll try that darker color. See, and that's better. Now I'm starting to shape that the way that I want. If I just take a second, I'll click off of it so you can kind of see where this is going. And you can see how the colors now are starting to shape, right? If I actually activate the mesh, start using my direct selection tool, I want you to see you can actually pull the mesh points. So if you want to enhance the way the colors are going, you can actually pull the mesh points and I can start to shape this. So I could actually grab those highlights and I could pull, and notice how I can shape my white highlight. Okay, so I can kind of shape the way that is. I can also do that the same thing here. Okay, if I want to pull this, I can really shape the way that highlight looks. Alright, so I'll click off of it. And you can see now I'm really starting to kind of shape the way the colors fall. Alright, if I wanted to do more with it, I could. One last little tip here, I can take this live trace. Notice that the live trace of my bitmap on the left, I haven't expanded it yet, and I haven't converted it to a live paint object. What I'm going to do is expand this. That makes it a shape. I'm going to use my direct selection tool. I don't need the background, so I'm going to delete that. I don't need the shadows here. Excuse me. So I'm going to delete those as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this object, okay, this whole thing, and I'm just going to reduce the opacity on it. We'll go to about 50%. Okay, and now it's kind of like a skin. And if I take this, I can put it over my trace. Okay, and you can see if I take my object and throw it to the back, right, see how it gives my item, it gives my pear a little bit of texture. Now what I want to do is I'm going to select this object and I can reduce the opacity even more so you can really see my color blend. So if I go down to say maybe even 20%, now really my colors start to come through. So I've combined the actual live trace to give it texture with my gradient mesh, and that really helps bring it out. So I want to give full credit to this particular technique. I did not come up with this technique. I have to give full credit to this technique to Mr. Chase Harding. He actually was one of my first year Illustrator students and demonstrated this, came up with this idea for a project assignment. So I think it's an excellent technique. It really cuts down on the amount of time when you're creating a gradient mesh. I think it's wonderful. So I'm AJ Wood. Appreciate you being here to watch today's tutorial. You guys have an excellent afternoon.